Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to do a short video, shorter than the ones I did last week if you had me for trimester one, for setting up our class for today. I'm going to keep doing the classes this way, I think, because I like that I can talk to you the way that I would if I was in a Zoom meeting right now. But you can do it on your own, and you can pause it, and you can fast forward or go back. And at the same time, I can be available in the actual Zoom meeting. So it gives us flexibility. So I am available for questions, and you guys can work at your own pace so that some people want to stop and ask questions more, and the rest of the class doesn't have to wait. So we're all in kind of different places depending on who you had for a teacher first trimester, or even what school you were at. So my students got through the metabolism unit. Some students did metabolism plus the metabolism internship, the project. And then other students didn't even get through metabolism. So we're really at different places. And so what we're going to pick up is with phase change. I hope that we're back in person learning soon, because phase change has a bunch of really fun class labs and activities to do if you were in the hybrid model. But before we do phase change, we're going to do a really brief intro to the periodic table of elements and just chemistry. And you do your actual chemistry unit that you do for junior high is in 8th grade. This just couple of days that we're going to do will just help us when we're talking about phase change. There's just some general background that we need to know to make sense of the phase change unit. So today you have this document that looks like this that's posted in Canvas. And it's just a general introduction to the periodic table of elements. And so I'm going to start working through this. This won't take me very long because most of this you're going to do on your own. If you have, I'll say this again at the end, I'm sure, but you have to figure out this puzzle towards the end of this. And if you're confused, you can email me and I can give you hints. And as my students from first trimester know, when you're done with assignments, you can email me and I'll check to make sure that your assignment is done. And if your assignment's completed, and you email me, I will share the answer key with you for you to look over and make sure that you did things correctly. So those are some options at the end. And now I'm going to do this warm-up part. And it's just a general introduction to the periodic table. A lot of you guys have seen a picture of the periodic table. It looks, I guess I don't have one pulled up on here right now, but I could do a quick search. And it looks like this. And so there's a lot of symbols and a lot of numbers, but it's organized. And that's what we're going to learn a little bit about today is how it's organized and who organized it. And so if I looked back on my paper here, this is not a periodic table of elements. This is just a bunch of numbers, but they're organized like the periodic table is. And the periodic table of elements has some similar organization as this row of numbers or this pattern of numbers. So first of all, when we talk about the periodic table of elements, we'll talk about families, we'll talk about columns, rows. So rows will go horizontal this way, and columns are vertical and families are vertical. And so if I looked at this, what are some trends that I see, or what are some things that the rows left to right have in common? And typically, if we were in class, we'd raise your hand and call on somebody. But so some of the things, a couple of things that I notice is that the numbers get higher and they increase by 1. Now, if I look at the columns, the vertical columns, what do each column have in common? And I could say that, again, the numbers increase just like the rows did. And this time, instead of increasing by a value of 1, the numbers increase by a value of 10. And then when I was trying to find a third one, it was kind of hard. It was kind of a stretch. But what I said for the third one is that the second number in the columns, the second number is always the same vertically. And so if you were using that, if you're using the same kind of example for, if you're doing this on your own, I suppose you could have said that the first number increases by 1. But those are all things that the rows and the columns have in common. And we're just looking for patterns is the idea. When we look at the real periodic table of elements, there's a lot of patterns that we can recognize. Now, for your activity, you are going to try to do this organization. It's similar to the periodic table of elements because we have to look at each one of these cards. You look at the properties. So instead of the properties being things like a metal or a non-metal, or talking about things like valence electrons, the pictures you're looking at look like this. And on your paper, you can move them around just like I am. But it's kind of hard and it's a little frustrating. So if you printed yours, if you have access to a printer and you just printed it and cut them up, it's probably easier. But both ways are totally possible. And so your directions are, oops, I went too far. Your directions are to, I don't know, what did I do here? Well, there we go. Your directions, it says your mission is to work with those sketches, those pictures that I showed you of those characters on their secret agents. And it says there's 17 of them, I think. There's 17 different characters. And we need to figure out who the 18th one is. And so there's one card missing. And so you're going to have to arrange the other 17 in the correct order. And when you arrange them, you're going to notice that there's one spot missing. And you should be able to predict what that 18th spot would look like based on the properties of the other ones around it. Just like up here, if I had, let me go like this. If I arranged all these numbers and this one was missing, you'd be able to tell based on this 10, 11, 13, you'd be able to tell what's missing here, 12. And so with your pictures of the suspects and the sketches, you're going to be able to do the same thing. And I'll show you kind of a hint. This actually will help you a lot. How they look at the end. This really should cut you a lot of time into your effort here. But that's how, when I did it, and it took me I've done this before, and it still took me 5 minutes to figure these out. I rearranged them incorrectly once, and then the second time I was able to do it. So It might, for some of you, you might be able to do this in 30 seconds. And for some of you, it might take 10 minutes and a little bit of frustration. So that's all right. Just play around with it, mess around with them until you get an organization that makes sense. And you'll be able to draw this one based on the patterns that you notice going from left to right and top down. You're going to be able to notice, or you're going to be able to draw this last picture. And you'll draw the picture. Well, you can't really draw. Some of you have figured out how to draw on this. I don't know how you guys do it. But if you can draw it, you can draw it here. Otherwise, you can just explain it. So you can say, so here's a guy. And you could say, if I was explaining this one, if this was what the one in the missing spot looked like, I would say he has 2 arms instead of 3. He has a certain amount of fingers. His body shape is like this. There's smiling, there's frowning on some of them. There's a number of hair. There's curly hair versus straight hair. There's the pattern on the body, not just the shape of the body, but the pattern. So there's all these different characteristics that you could explain what the missing person looks like. You can say they have 8 hair, it's curly, they have 7 fingers, they have the skinny body, they have 2 arms or 3 arms, they have vertical stripes. And so it should be pretty easy. Even if you can't draw, once you figure this out, even if you can't draw it, you can explain it. And let's see, where am I at? I'm at 12 minutes. I don't want to talk too much more. So you organize them, explain your missing person here. There's a couple of analysis about once you have all your cards ordered, there's a couple of analysis questions here for you to do. And then the last thing for you to do is to click this link here, and there's a 4-minute video about this guy named Mendeleev who organized the first periodic table, and there's a couple questions that go with it, and then you'll be done. And so at that point, you could email me and you can say, Mr. Smith, I'm done, and I will look at your paper really quick and either give you some suggestions, or I will just share the answer key with you. And so that should take you should be able to finish it up in 25 or 30 minutes for your class today. And so good luck, and I will go ahead and post this.